is Jimmy Page for the Black Crowes. Great version of that song from Physical Graffiti originally. Sick Again on the SoCal Sun. I'm really happy to have Chris Robinson here from the Black Crowes, who put out really one of the greatest, if not the greatest album of the year. I love this record so much, Happiness Bastards. There's so many great songs. It's so deep. And, you know, it's Grammy eligible right now. So if those of you that are listening that can vote, I mean, come on. Best rock album.
It's not, you know, from a band that was called or considered Miserable Bastards, I think to pull ourselves from the muck and be Happy Bastards, vote for that at least.
Yeah, tell me about that. You got that name from like it was...
I've never been good at asking for votes. You know, when you come from my age of rock and roll, like the most horrible you could be was, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we were definitely against that.
You know, you see these things on YouTube, like when the Replacements ruined their career. I'm like, when they were on Saturday Night Live, we were like, isn't that how you do it? You know,
yeah, exactly.
Don't you mess up everything?
Yeah, but it was great. You know what I mean? We loved the Replacements. We loved all that. I mean, I'm allowed to say that. I mean, my favorite albums of the year are yours and Pearl Jam's, and I'm just like, you know, there's good stuff out there. But this is, I mean, it's the critics absolutely great. But can we talk about that? Just hearing you do Sick Again with Jimmy Page is just so great. There's so much edge and swagger in it. That's one of your favorite songs that you've...
Yeah. I mean, well, the whole Jimmy... That whole, you know, our friendship and, you know, it kind of starts, we were at the Zenith in Paris and we had played at the Royal Albert Hall and Robert came and then Jimmy, I guess, wanted to get in on it because we had played with Robert. I'd opened for Robert Plant in 1990. That was one of our first tours. And then Jimmy was like, "Oh, you're in Paris. I love Paris." And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to this party afterwards, and you should." And then he's there, and I was like, "You want to sit in on some blues or something?" He's like, "Yeah." And that's really kind of how that started. But,
and so you guys ended up on, you know, doing live "Oh Well," which was great. Fleetwood
yeah,
Mac
and we did "Shapes of Things," and I mean, you know, I guess it's in March. We've done a reissue or a box set of. There's 6 vinyl records, so you know we played Black Crowes material as well as the blues stuff, and that we were contractually never able to release that stuff, which it's like I don't know who made that. Oh, I do know who made that decision. But
it's finally coming out, right?
Yeah, and we're super excited, and it sounds incredible. I was just texting with Jimmy today about it, how he loves the mastered copy and all the mixes and everything. So
I love that you and Chris and Jimmy have already approved all those tracks. There's like 50 something.
Me and
right?
Rich, okay.
Oh, you and Rich,
okay,
yeah.
Mom. You saw my mom.
My mom always calls me
Rich all the time,
and my mom calls me Glenn, my brother's name. Yeah. So it's like
she's always like Rich, and I'm like Mom.
Oh yeah,
we are different.
Yes.
No. Yeah. Of course. I mean, it was obviously Jimmy takes the lead, you know, because he's James Patrick. But it was a very integrated experience. You know, we kind of always have had that swagger and that thing, and that's what attracted Jimmy to our vibes and our sound and our musicianship, our talent. But you know, it was also, you know, it's funny. We saw the Led Zeppelin documentary last night. We got to see a private screening, and it's incredible. I mean. You see a lot of rock documentaries, but this one, it's called Becoming Led Zeppelin. It only focuses on the first 2 albums and like putting the band together, and then everyone's kind of early days as the 4 of them. But there's one point when Jimmy's like, "Oh yeah, you know, when you go over to someone's house and I have that," you know, him and Robert like, "Oh, I have that record. And that was the way it was for us in the 80s as teenagers in Atlanta. When we were in Mr. Crow's Garden, so many lifelong friendships, so many professional relationships revolve around record collections. And, you know, especially in the 80s, you know, it was like, if you're wearing a damn if I saw someone in that T-shirt walking down the road in 1983 in Atlanta, you pulled over and went, "What else yet?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, we know each other. We don't know each other, but we know each other.
Yeah. It's
and it's funny, that's... with Jimmy, when we got to know him and we're on tour together, and after the show, we're in my room or whatever. And back then we had CDs, but I had a custom stereo and a stereo in a custom case, and I had a giant another road case with like 200 CDs in it. And he's digging through oh, you have Otis Spann. Oh, you have this Earl Hooker record or whatever, blues and R&B and stuff. And that kind of solidified our friendship outside of just working together as well, which is just the way it goes with music.
I love it. And last night, and just today, you were texting with Jimmy, telling him how much you loved the documentary, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can't wait for this to come out in March. I mean, it's all been remixed too, which is going to sound so much better than
remix,
the original
remastered,
extra
and
songs, and
all sorts of stuff. Like there's a jam from like Soundcheck at the Greek that no one. I mean, lots of stuff. Sound stuff from Soundchecks. I think there's a bunch of other things that people haven't heard.
Yeah.
And all the Crows stuff, which is amazing.
I can't wait for that, because you did do all those songs. I saw the shows, and it was they were great tunes. I opened with Wiser Time today, so that's on there, which is great. I mean,
Yeah, we picked stuff that we picked, Remedy and some of the more kind of hits that we had, but we also picked things that we thought Jimmy would, I think Horsehead's on there. It's not on there. No Speak, No Slave, all sorts of kind of like heavy riff rock things that we were always like, oh, wow. I mean, if Jimmy's, if he'll do it, let's put Jimmy Page on that,
Yeah, I think it's great. You picked some great songs to play today. So in between, checking out Black Crow stuff from the new album, which we're very excited is eligible again for the Grammy. I want to also, talk about some of the stuff you love. We have that mutual thing. We've always talked about records. I mean, everything from, T-Rex to the Gun Club. And you picked Mott the Hoople, One of the Boys. Great song from All the Undudes.
Yeah,
72.
I mean, Ian Hunter, just one of the great rock songwriters. Some of the greatest rock and roll lyrics. And on top of his singing and everything. But, Mott the Hoople, Mick Jones from The Clash is like following Mott the Hoople around. So, glam is kind of like the petri dish for what punk is going to be. And I think across the board, most of the original punk people, they didn't like the Carpenters or, the Eagles or whatever, but they all liked Mott the Hoople. And, it's very English, But I think ultimately they're funky, cool, guitar-driven records, great riffs, and they have an attitude that I think kind of permeates itself in the punk snarl a few years later.
It really does, absolutely. And like you said, I think that Mick Jones from The Clash, he loved them so much and followed them around, as you said.
Yeah, yeah.
At all their gigs.
A bunch of them, you know what I mean? Like Jonesy liked the Mott the Hoople.
Yeah.
And so they were just one of those bands that I think maybe the casual, it's like T-Rex is in the same sort of vein. Glam wasn't the same here as it was in England or in Europe. You know what I mean? The only record that anyone ever would casually know here is like Bang a Gong by T-Rex.
Yeah,
or maybe Jeepster or something.
Yeah.
They don't really know the whole.
Yeah.
And Mott the Hoople, I think, is the same.
Absolutely. So we're going to play that right now.
And by the way, if anyone is listening who's younger than us, that's what phones used to sound like.
It's Chris Robinson, guest DJ on SoCal Sound today.
Is it still
There
around?
it is. Question mark in the Mysterians, 1966.
By the way, that if you don't like that song, if you don't love that song, if you don't put that song on and everyone in your house starts dancing, then you are with the wrong people, man.
Yeah, it's a classic.
If you don't like that song, you don't like rock and roll.
It's a great tune. 1966 went to #1, right? It was on a small
Same year
label.
as Moi.
Yeah, you were born, right? Yeah, and I'm a little older
But
than
Question
you.
Mark also incredible performer, and we did a thing in New York last week, 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
With David Frick, and we were talking about both of those Question Mark records are great garage rock records. They're like track for track. They're both great records, especially that first one.
Yeah.
The whole album is great.
It really is. There's all those other things on there, like I Need Somebody and all those singles. And, the crazy story is actually the label was going to work Midnight Hour, and then it was Rudy Martinez, Question Mark, who was going around and basically telling radio stations when he was doing interviews to play 96 Tears, which was the smart move. And then Cameo Records picked it up. It was Neil Bogart, the guy who ended up creating Casablanca Records.
And I think he created the world's first massive cocaine addiction, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. There was a lot of stories about the blow and the like the Easter eggs. It was like while they were partying and swinging, there were some Easter egg hunts for the kids with $100 bills in them, so they could keep the kids out of the house. Crazy! You hear these stories.
Yeah, this is before laptops, everybody.
Yes, it was in the '70s when you and I were, But it's amazing. So yeah, question mark. And of course, he did that song "Can't Get Enough of You, Baby," which was great too.
Incredible. What was
Colorfield did
a great version of it.
And Smash Mouth later covered it. But I love the Colorfield version is Terry Hall, man.
The great late Terry Hall, who should still be with us. We were watching some specials videos the other night. He was, Camille, my wife, and I got to meet him a couple of years ago at a festival, and it was like a real thrill.
Yeah. He's such a cool guy.
Amazing.
I interviewed him.
Great songwriter, too.
Yeah.
Because, the Fun Boy 3, especially the first Fun Boy 3 record, is another one of those records that, you think the whole records you can't do it the way that you do it.
Yeah.
With Bananarama.
Yeah.
But that song's great, and every song on that record is spectacular.
Yeah, the Lunatics have taken over the asylum.
Amazing.
The more I see, the less I believe.
What's the phone rings song?
Yeah.
Great songs.
Yeah. Oh, The Telephone Always Rings, it's called, right? Yeah, that stuff is great. Terry Hall was great songwriter. And he was
a great voice.
Yeah.
And cool looking all the time.
Yeah, he was. Absolutely. I love the specials. And before that, we heard Mott the Hoople. We talked about that already, which is really cool. And we're going to play the Standells now, which you picked, which I love. Now, this is an L.A. band. They got famous for Dirty Water, which, of course, had the lyrics about Boston in it. But can you talk to me about your love?
I love all the kind of... I didn't want to go too obscure and get down the rabbit hole today, but... Standells, Chocolate Watch Band, Music Machine, all those kind of bands. Chocolate Watch Band were from San Jose, but fantastic bands. And, as a kid, we were talking about, I was, back in the old days when you came home from school and, you had, 4 channels or whatever, and the Munsters inevitably were always on, and, the Standells would come on. So they must have been cool because, he had a white Telecaster and they sounded cool. But they play a Beatles song on the Munsters, I believe. I Want to Hold Your Hand or something weird, funny.
Yeah, that's what
they don't sound as kind of gritty. But that would be back before VHS tapes and before the way the world is now. The only way you could see something like the Standells was on the Munsters, unless you were there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it'd be kind of holy in a way to be able to have these little snapshots of the rock and roll world or vibes from another era that we didn't have access to,
Absolutely. And really all you had it in those period of time were when they'd be on shows like, American Bandstand or Where the Action Is that were here. And then, of course, once Don Kirshner's rock concert came and In Concert on ABC and Midnight Special. But that was the 70s, basically. So that's
So there's great stuff on there, but then you have to wade through a lot of Ted Nugent and stuff, to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, there was always 5 or 6 different people, and some people that would repeat that you knew were friends with the producers.
You know what was really cool? You know what was great about Don Kirshner's rock concert too is you would get the big rock acts, but then you could see the Ohio Players, and they would have R&B acts and funk acts as well. And you didn't really get to see that either. You know what I mean? So I loved that those shows would have, not just the popular rock acts or that would be on the rock radio, but you'd have, black acts that were on these radio stations that the average. They had pop crossover hits, but that the average person wasn't probably listening to those stations. So you got to see incredible, these amazing funk singles, but great musicians. Everyone looked super cool and representing a whole nother scene and a whole nother vibe.
Yeah, it was cool when they mixed it up like that. I think it's like radio was at the time too.
I'll have to come back. We'll do an all funk sesh.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Well, that's the cool thing about the SoCal sound is that there's so many different things you hear. That's the beauty of the station. Let's play I want to talk to you about Wanting and Waiting. What a great song, and it's been
Cheers.
a big single for you, and a big #1 rock single. Talk to me about coming up with this song, because it's got such a great
Well,
riff
I
and
mean,
lyrics.
I'm super lucky that my songwriting partner is not just that he's my brother, but that Rich, that's what he does. You know what I mean? He writes these riffs, and it was funny. We were doing an interview, and he goes, Chris doesn't love all of them, and I of course not. That's not how it works. But when he plays me something, it could have been Remedy, Jealous Again, Goodbye Daughters of the Revolution, I don't know, Horsehead, whatever. Yeah, when he plays me something, it just hits me in a real visceral level, and it's instant imagination, instant inspiration for me to start doing what I do, which is write the lyrics, write the melody, and then work on the arrangement and stuff. So, I mean, that's how we start back in the '80s, and that's exactly the same fuel, the same engine that runs us today.
It does, and it's really served you guys well on this great new album. Again, certainly worthy of the best rock album of the year, in my opinion. I mean, it's such a great record. I mean, again, I can't believe it made me so happy. You guys coming out with new music here, and obviously, since 2019 when you guys got back together in 2009, and there's all this stuff that all those dates, but it's this record is strong. You know what I mean? And I've seen you do it live, and it's great, man.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a great time making it, and it's we've done we've always had the freedom, and as we know, America, freedom isn't always free, but we've always had the freedom, no matter what it looks like on the outside, to express ourselves and make different records and go off into all sorts of, sometimes indulgent, sometimes but I think to be where we are after the last few years, we're just really in love with rock and roll. I mean, that's just a simple fact.
You really are. So we're going to hear the Standells, of course, which we talked about, and then we're going to check out some Black Crowes from the new album, Happiness Bastard. So here's the Standells first.
Yeah.
And this is Sometimes Good Guys Don't Wear White, a song that Minor Threat actually covered before they broke up as well.
And I just saw the Zeros at Zebulon a few months ago, and they played this that night too, and I was stoked.
It's such a cool song.
Yeah.
Let's check it out right now. The Standells. There it is, Wild in the Streets. Great song from Garland Jeffries.
That's dedicated to the Circle Jerks today.
Yeah. And they just got off the road. I know they did just, talked to Greg Hetson on a regular basis, of course, from Bad Religion. Circle Jerks were brothers.
I saw him recently at a sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's such a great guy and a great guitarist.
And Keith is like...
And Keith Morris,
I was so stoked because, the big bad bell-bottom wearing Black Crowes, blues rock or whatever. Like, I read his book, My Damage, and he mentions in the book, and I met him when I first came out here. We used to hang out at this bar called Smalls on Melrose, and he would play records and bartend in there. And he was like, yeah, I sobered up and then made drinks for cool bands like the Black Crowes. And I was like, cool.
That's great that he said that. Yeah, of course, right? I mean, he's
a legend. I mean, he's a legend.
Absolutely. Having been the first singer for Black
It's funny how that music is now. You can remove yourself from some of it and just see it for, again, great songs, great bands, cool grooves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Great. It's exactly, I think, what those bands wanted to be, and that was just rock and roll bands. Just not with all the,
Yeah, and at the bottom of it, that's exactly what it is. It's all the rock and roll bands. We're gonna take a quick break. And we're going to come back. We got to just take care of this. We're going to tell you all right now about our year-end bash that's coming up right here on the SoCal Sound. I'm Matt Pinfield in the studio with Chris Robinson, who is picking some of his favorite songs. I mean, he loves so many songs. He and I could literally sit here for 8 hours, maybe longer.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. But, we're here to celebrate the great album that the Black Crowes put out this year, which is just amazing. Happiness Bastards. Right now, though, we're going to take care of this, and we'll be right back. Talk. Music Machine right there, and one of my favorite songs from when I was a kid.
Another one. If you don't think that, you don't ever say you like rock and roll if you don't like that song.
It's amazing. 1966.
And it's punk. I mean, it's so punk. You can just hear it, but the groove's so deep and the guitar sounds, and Yeah, it's been one of my favorites since I first heard it. You know, probably it's not on the first Nuggets record, is it?
No, it wasn't unless it came out on the CD reissues later, which I remember I reviewed for
Lenny
Ray
Kaye
Gun.
told me he still owes. Who put that record out?
Well, it was Elektra and then Sire.
Yeah, and he says he's like 50 years later he got a check for $16 or something.
Which is amazing. You know what's crazy? Seymour Stein told me while he was alive that he wanted the compilation because Elektra put it out and didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, because it comes out a later one.
Yeah, so what he basically said was he called up to say, I want the Nuggets album. They're like, oh, that band didn't do well. We'll license it to you. It's like, it's like 24 bands.
By the way, I believe every bit of that story.
It's amazing. I mean, but isn't that guy great? Like Sean Bonnewell, the singer of that band, it was just so punk and the edge of that.
Yeah, just raw and funky, and it's for bad kids. You know what I mean? And that's what I can't emphasize enough. You get older or whatever, but part of the attraction of rock and roll, part of the things that we liked that. There were big corporate bands, big famous bands growing up, whether it was Journey or Van Halen, AC/DC. We loved AC/DC, but they're big, giant bands that seemed a million miles away from, playing the Omni and Atlanta arena bands and, great records, great bands. But then punk and what I guess in the 80s we called college radio bands. They were accessible to us, and not just because we want to write songs and we want to, but also the anger, also the passion, the just we don't care, you know what I mean? Like we're not we're just not going that route, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've said it before, but and it's the same. The music business, I think, I think one main difference today is. I see, and I'm older, so I could be wrong, and I can take it, but I see so many artists that are they're so happy to be complacent. They'll do whatever the record company tells them. They'll do whatever the people tell them to do, and the way they look is nothing. The way they say means nothing. It's just, and I get it, but you also have to remember, for a lot of us, rock and roll was defiant. It wasn't compliant at all. We were defiantly against any system. What do you have? You know what I mean? It's like Marlon Brando and the Wild Ones. What are you rebelling against, Johnny? What do you got? You know what I mean?
That's such a great moment.
And it was just a part of the, I don't know, now that there's a romanticism about that. And I think again, I picked just a lot of rock records that I hope people would do today and things that I play all the time that I thought we would like today, but
yeah, I think it's great, and you picked the New York Dolls too, and that obviously that song "Talk Talk" was so great, and their album "Turn on the Music Machine," where he's wearing one glove.
He wrote that song at the Chateau Marmont.
Can we talk about that? So you're imitating Johnny Thunders, right? Because you saw some to you and your wife Camille.
I just want to make the kids dance.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't even. I mean, people from Queens don't even talk like they're from Queens anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because it's all been,
I was being texted by my friend, Frank Fasinelli over there. He's from Queens. He sounds like he's from England. They don't even talk like that anymore.
It's amazing.
I need a little Queens.
So you picked the New York Dolls. And by the way, in case you just tuned in, I'm Matt Pinfield here with Chris Robinson, and we are playing some of his favorite songs and celebrating the release this year of Happiness Bastards, which is eligible for a Grammy, and I know I'm voting for it. That's for sure, because I'm a voter, and I love the record so much. So
I don't know, why am I not a voter?
I think we got to change.
You're not registered.
By the way,
we heard what you said about being compliant. You're not allowed to vote. I'm like, I did it again.
So, but you picked the New York Dolls or Chatterbox from Too Much.
I mean,
Too
again,
Soon.
the New York Dolls. You can't say. I mean, the sheer fact that they're Morrissey's favorite band is amazing. But or that Todd Rundgren produces the first record, whatever. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're great songs, and I love the idea that the things that we're talking about are real rock and roll things. I mean, we could come in and just play 40s, 50s music, and the originators of rock and roll. And then as the girl groups come along and stuff, and you hear all that in that music, and it's regional, but it's like cosmic rock and roll messages, and they looked incredible, and they just had that snarl, you know, they had the teeth, and they have the tunes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't think, you know, as time's going on, of course, and people's parents thought they were gross and disgusting, and that used to be a big part of it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, this isn't for everyone.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean? And that kind of attitude was funny, that major labels would be like, yeah, you know, we'll sign them because it's for somebody. You know what I mean? And I think in the corporate world, it's, you want to take the teeth out of everything so it's for everybody. Yeah. And that's cool too. But, you know, I like this idea that, you know, we were talking about when you wore your shirts in the 80s, you didn't wear a shirt because it was cool or ironic. You wore it because you were repping something that meant something to you.
Yeah.
And you would be like, yeah, this is, and it wasn't, it's how you feel, you know, and so much of the Black Crowes, that's all we do. You know, it's funny. I meet people all the time, all sorts of musicians. And I think in this day and age, if you come see the Black Crowes, we're loud. We have amps on stage. We sing through monitors. The sound is moving. We're not a computer-driven band. We're not a laptop-driven band. We've never wanted anything to be perfect. The only thing perfect about rock and roll is its imperfection, you know?
Yeah.
And it benefits imperfect people, you know, like us that have had this incredibly unique opportunity to make music for decades now. And that's still, again, you know, I guess you have to whittle that down to, you have to, you know, either you're passionate about it or not, and or I think the adjacent cultural aspects of what it means, and it's changed, of course, you know, like we were saying, but that undercurrent should still be there.
Yeah, and I think it is. And you picked a lot of really great music here. Let's talk about your love for the Clash, because you picked Straight to Hell off of Combat Rock.
Yeah, again, I mean, you know, even if you like get older and you think, you know, Joe's naivete of trying to save the world or the working man's plight or this, it means more now than it did when he was saying it. You know what I mean? And, you know, there was a band who, I mean, just again, it all comes together from a group of people. You know what I mean? From different bands, almost disparate scenes and stuff. Paul Simonon could barely play bass. Strummer has this like kind of weird folk, almost hippie kind of energy from where he was coming from as the 70s turned angry in England. And Mick Jones, you know, he wanted to be Keith Richards, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you bring them all together in this vortex of what's happening in 1976 and 75, 76, 77, and it's just powerful. And you know, Strummer's message is powerful. His delivery is powerful. The songs are powerful, and isn't that what we want from a great rock and roll band? And they had Topper Heaton, who's one of the great.
Wait, that guy was one of the best drummers
of all time.
Yeah,
and you never
when
hear
he joined
him.
the band. Like, I mean, it's like the guy had
the two drummers that people don't talk about enough are him and John Dinsmore from the Doors. To me, like where would we be? The language that they have and what they do in their bands is like just inspiring.
It really is. And we're going to play that right now. We're going to play Straight to Hell from Combat Rock. We're talking about the Clash. Topper Heaton, like you said, never gets the credit he deserves.
Incredible.
I mean, just if you listen to the way, like that little break that's very like simple in it, right before the verses come back in Brand New Cadillac. Just that little, whatever he does. I mean, it was just incredible.
Super musical.
And John Densmore, too, just also great. In the meantime, here's the Clash. We're with Chris Robinson. He's picking some music for you today. It's so great to have him here. And I know you've been hearing tracks off Happiness Bastards, their new album. If you are eligible to vote for the Grammys, that's coming up. Make sure that you definitely vote for these guys. And
I might see you over there with Truman Capote at Chateau Marmont.
Yeah, we have to do that. Here's Straight to Hell, the Clash on the SoCal Sound. The Black Crowes from their new album, Happiness Bastards. That one is called Bedside Manners, and it's the SoCal Sound. I'm Matt Pinfield in the studio with Chris Robinson, who's guest DJing with me today. And we're we're playing some of the new record too because I wanted to play some of these songs.
Yeah,
Stuff
I mean, in
sounds
case
great.
any lawyers are listening, Matt's playing the Black Crowes songs. I may be a Sagittarian. I might be the lead singer, but
No, it's
I've never
great.
played my own songs on the radio.
No, but you played you love DJing though, right? Did you?
Yeah.
And you and your wife Camille do DJ out, which is very cool.
Yeah. It's been a minute, but yeah, we love to. I mean, we've DJed parties and concerts and at bars, and yeah, we love it. We love it.
It's fun to DJ out. Like I was spinning 45s mostly lately, but I did it with the Chameleons at the Belasco, and then
Cool.
which was great. And then
Chameleons UK.
yeah, the Chameleons UK, as they had to call them, right? Who were so great, Mark Burgess and that. But let's talk about some of the other great songs you picked. First of all, that really rare single by the Scientists, a band from Australia.
Yeah.
And Frantic Romantic from 1979. Tell me about that record, because it's so cool that one of the guys ended up in the Hoodoo Gurus.
Yeah, well, I mean that band is just great songs, and all their records are cool. They get kind of more like deranged, Dr. John, swampy kind of rock, and I mean Australia's always had there's a great scene now. All these young bands and bands that like Amel and the Sniffers and the Chats and like these kind of more kind of punk bands or rock bands with this kind of snarl to them again that are really good, and King Gizzard and all these, So Australia's always had a thing, and but yeah, the Scientists, that song, I was just saying, like I found that record at a record store in Melbourne called Savage Sloth. If you're ever in Melbourne, Australia,
It's the name of a song too.
Yeah,
Savage Sloth.
Well, it's funny too because two brothers own the record store, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound bougie or whatever, but I went in that record store and there were things in there I just couldn't believe it. It was like every record that I had been looking for. It was funny because the Scientists album, their first album, was that pink record with the Scientist on it, and I was like, I'm going to Australia, I'll find that record. Because personally, I don't like to buy records online very much. If there's something that I need, like, we're DJing and I really want that song, or whatever.
Yeah, but you like going to bricks and mortar and supporting record stores.
I like to, but it's also exciting. I'm a dork. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I go in a record store. I've been looking for something. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I'm the
there
dork
it
too.
is.
It's like that thing where we love.
You never know when you walk in the door. You know what I mean? And if there's something you've been looking for, and when you've been collecting records, I've been collecting records since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And records are a huge. I don't just love them; they're a huge part of like my identity. We started talking about it. You know what I mean? What records do you like? And no matter how many records you have, no matter how much you learn, no matter how dorked out you are about your records,
There's always something else you can find out. Yeah.
Now I'm like, I need all these Colombian cumbia records from like the 60s. They're impossible to find here. You know what I mean? Or whatever I get into.
And
I'm a deep dive person.
You are, and I think you also like to support bricks and mortar stores too. Like,
of course.
For me, I love that you can walk in, you can look through things, and you make just because it looks.
And
really
there's and like anything else, there's people. I think the best stores, record stores around the world, are run by people that love their record store as well. It's not just yes, you can dig through thousands of records at some junk place and kind of do that, which is cool. But when people really love their records and when there's stores that are really heavily curated and I don't know, it's just a pleasure. And before the internet and before everything, that's how we learned about records. You went to, I didn't know. Because I think did I put Dwight Twilley on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like Dwight Twilley's a great example from like the 80s. They wouldn't play I'm on Fire on the radio in Georgia, but the Wax and Facts in Atlanta, Danny Beard's store, whatever. If I'm going in there buying Big Star reissues, because it was impossible to get the original Big Star records, and someone goes, "Oh, you like Big Star? Well, you'll like this Dwight Twilley record." And now I'm like, okay.
That's what it used to be
like.
like.
Buy the Dwight Twilley record, and I go home, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't like this record. I love this record.
Yeah, and it's wild because Sincerely and those records were great. And just the fact that he was in the studio and made the suggestion to Mike Campbell and Tom Petty, hey, that thing you do at the end of the song, you should play it through the entire song. That riff on Breakdown, that was only at the end, and they went back in and re-recorded it on Dwight's
And then
suggestion.
you're like, oh, so that guy comes from the same scene, kind of, as J.J. Cale and Leon Russell, like Tulsa, and like how that scene moves. And I think Tom Petty ends up in Tulsa as well because he's like a staff writer at Shelter Records and stuff. So, you know what I mean? Again, like the cool stuff always finds a way to each other, no matter what it is. It doesn't have to be one thing. And by the way, great, anything that's, I think, interesting, anything that's soulful and dynamic, it's never just one thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always a multitude.
That's why we love so many different styles of music too. We love rock and roll at the base, but also soul music and
R&B, funk, jazz,
everything.
Folk music, bluegrass music, electronic composers, avant-garde music.
I love it all.
Indian classical music, whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to play, why don't we play that Dwight Twilley song right now?
Yeah.
I'm on Fire, which was actually a chart hit here in America.
Yeah.
It went top 20. It's a great track. We'll play it right now. On the SoCal Sound, it's Matt Pinfield in the studio with Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes, picking music today. Hard to Handle right there, of course, is such a great version of that. I remember when I first got your debut album, and I was like, could that be the Otis Redding song? Because I had it on a compilation. It wasn't the American one, the immortal Otis Redding that came out after he died.
It was a B-side. He wrote the song.
Yeah, and it was a B-side of Amen is what it was.
Yeah, then I brought that to George Drakoulias, who signed us and produced the first couple records. And George, if you listen to the Otis Redding version, there's no way to, it's incredible. But because we're not an R&B band and they had a horn section, there's really swings and is lighter on the downbeat with Otis is great. And that break is just such a hook, but George was the one who was like, all right, we're going to take that, but make it Walk This Way. It's pretty much based on Walk This Way.
Yeah.
So you could put Walk This Way and Hard to Handle on and mash them up and all the breaks are kind of fit in there and stuff, which was, you'd think George is a genius because of his fashion, but no, it's
we love George.
It's because of ideas like that.
It's incredible. Yeah, he's
and the fashion too.
Yeah, he's such a great producer and a real music guy. That's what I love about him. And he was
is he still in the business? Was that?
Yeah. I'm just kidding. No, it's amazing. So let's talk about, speaking of which, you guys have a tour coming up, which I noticed we're streaming everywhere.
Friday we start in Cleveland, and speaking of Walk This Way, with Aerosmith calling it quits or whatever they're doing this week, which was a bummer for all of us Aerosmith fans. But for us, we had a lot of shows booked anyway, so we ended up filling in some dates and hitting some markets we haven't hit. And, to be honest, this record, it's not, again, like we were talking about it in the last segment. It's one thing, we make records, we write songs, we go on stage. But for us, the things we've been through, putting the band back together, getting everything where it is, making the record was really important for the culture of the Black Crowes and the band we have right now and the people in the band and the presentation. And, it's been really amazing bonding experience musically and personally for us to, the first 2 years since we got back to it after COVID was really been, we played Shake Your Moneymaker in its entirety and so more of a greatest hits kind of vibe. So it was been nice to get into a looser place with the set list to play new songs as well, and I would think, it's, again, we're one of those bands, I've seen, there's so many great bands, but we're really lucky to be in a place that we can make a new record and have these new songs kind of fit into the repertoire, and have the kind of career that we have that we can, also bend our will or have the kind of songs that fit into a certain thing that the Happiness Bastards tour has been. We want it to be very high energy, very rock and roll. Even the cover tunes that we were playing on tour, doing Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry, doing Lou Reed, Stones, David Bowie.
It was great.
I mean, and so that is something for us that we think is exciting for the audience, but it's also exciting for us. And so to have this kind of opportunity to go out and hit some places that we didn't get to do in the first part of the year, we're just really stoked.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. And you love the record shop every city you go to, which is so cool.
Yes.
I mean, you've already got down like 3 stores in Cleveland.
We go to Cleveland tomorrow for Friday, and I already have all my record stores.
Yeah, which is so great.
I'm sure they know I'm coming if they saw the dates.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
There's a record store there called Blue Arrow that's really good, and when I used to go in my solo group, we would play there once a year, and the guy who owns the store would have like a little box set aside for me and for Neil Casal, who was our guitar player.
Yeah,
and he'd be like, "Oh, you guys can wander through the store, but after you've been in here 5 times, I know what you guys like." And he would have like these boxes with stuff ready for us.
That's cool that he would think about you guys that way.
Of course.
I mean, that's what we said about that personal thing about the record store. That is so cool.
And it's like anything else. It's how it is. People go buy a guitar, but if someone goes into a guitar store who's a real guitar player, it's more fun for the guy to sell them something special. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if you're a connoisseur and you're a real collector. It's fun if you're not. You know what I mean? You don't have to be the total dork like we are, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like go in, buy Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Have fun. You know what I mean? But if you're into it and you have those, that's been the great thing about all the adventures on tour. I'm that way with used bookstores. I'm that way with restaurants. I'm that way with all sorts of things that interest me around the world. And like we said, you just walk. You never know what you're going to find when you walk through the doors.
And that's the beauty of it. It's the magic of it, too. We're going to take a quick break and come back with a couple more songs before you head out, Chris, because I know you got to go. But I love hanging, and it's just great. We can spin records for a couple days.
I have a couple of classes I have to attend late night. History of spoons. And which is it's one of them. I'm making a D in that, actually, so I'm going to have to get in there and work hard to wrap this semester up. And then there's Shoelace Technology 101.
Yeah, I still haven't mastered that yet. I'm here with Chris Robinson at SoCal Sound, and we'll be right back.
As we close another.
All right, Chris, we're not done yet. We got a couple more songs, but I want to play. And just because we mentioned it earlier in the show, but in case people are tuning in now, I'm here with Chris Robinson. I'm so psyched to have Chris here because we just geek out about music all the time when we're hanging out and going to shows and seeing each other at shows. And made one of the greatest albums of the year, certainly, which deserves to be, nominated for a Grammy and win, obviously, Happiness Bastards. What an incredible record. I know that for you Grammy-eligible listeners, keep that in mind. Absolutely. But more importantly, too, I want to say not only loving that, but I love that you guys have remixed and found all these tracks from the Jimmy Page Black Crowes live shows and rehearsals. Chris, it's amazing. Tell me about that, because the mix we're going to hear now isn't even the one that we're going to hear. We're going to hear this.
No, enjoy it now because
it's going to be replaced.
Coming, and it's going to be a Led Zeppelin Black Crowes avalanche over the other one. Even a giant Saint Bernard can't save it.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. And it's wild to think about that it was 24 years ago, almost 25 years ago. But, I mean, to be able to have the experience of being able to not just share music, but, we learned so much from Jimmy. And Jimmy is such a wonderful person. We just played in London a few months ago in May, the end of May, and Jimmy came down, and Steven Tyler came down, and Steven jumped up with us. We did Mama Ken, which was amazing. But it's pretty wild, you know what I mean? Like, to look over and Steven's staring at you, and Jimmy Page has his iPhone out, like...
He's right. Jimmy Page is shooting you in his eye.
Like, oh my
and you're
God,
like, it's surreal, right?
God.
It's that young kid who loves Zeppelin.
My brother says it all the time. People always go, well, how did you do? Rich goes, I mean, we couldn't, it wasn't a fan thing because, ultimately we were there to play the music and play it the best that we could and play it to, Jimmy's satisfaction as well.
Yeah.
Because he's Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? In terms of that, we were, now as the decades have rolled past and we still have a dear friendship with Jimmy, it even means more than it did then. And this box set that's coming out it's just wild to know, like, Mark was saying, God, you guys handled a lot of music for a short time. And, but I think that is just indicative of like the connection, you know what I mean? The musical connection and the excitement. And I think that, every day at rehearsals and stuff, I just think if Jimmy threw something at us and we tackled it. And, for me as a singer, I maybe, Robert is such a iconic vocalist, so unique, but we do, even though he's older, we do come from a lot of the same influences. And I think that's, again, one of the main reasons that, there's a lot of rock bands who love Led Zeppelin, but I don't know how much Jimmy Reed and, Muddy Waters and, I don't know how much roots music. People think, people say, oh, the blues, like as if the blues is one thing. Or they say, I don't like jazz, as if jazz is one thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. There's so
we
many
know
subgenres.
rock and roll's not one thing.
Yeah.
But I think that we could share that kind of language together, or feeling. Again, it's feeling for us because we're not trained musicians or anything.
Yeah.
That it and like I said, looking back now, it makes it unique. And then to be able to sort of get into listening to it again, is like, wow, we did. It was a pretty intense body of work for a very short period of time in our careers.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm glad I got to be there for one of those nights. It was just, I was living there at that point for a couple of years doing a Farm Club show, and I was there. I came out, I was like, that is like, I loved it.
Especially at the Greek. I mean, it's
what a great place.
It's just big enough to make it special and not too big to take, you know what I mean? And it's a place where you can really, I think we played the Greek, a few months ago.
And it was great when Ronnie Wood got up with you guys.
And played with us. So.
He did, and you guys did stay
so
with
usually
me.
when we play the Greek, we have English rock royalty sit in with us. I don't know about you guys.
Was it Keith or Mick? There was a possibility they were going to come down, but it was.
Yeah, maybe Keith was supposed to pop in, and.
Yeah, but they were rehearsing.
But we've had they were rehearsing. But years ago we played in Toronto and the Stones were rehearsing, and Mick and Ronnie came down. And that was like, oh my God, I've had Mick Jagger watch me a couple times, and that's another one. You're like, really?
Yeah, it's like that's it's
I'm like,
incredible.
all right, what I mean, don't make a mistake.
Yeah, because those guys are like masters. He still works out like every night before he goes on stage. That's the deal. He if it's not backstage area, they clear out one of the trucks, and he just does like a half-hour workout.
He's been doing that for forever.
Yeah, which I think is great.
We were playing in Spain in '95. We did pretty much the whole Voodoo Lounge tour. And it was funny because you're in these stadiums, and then there was like a press thing, or I don't know, there was something, and we had to, go through the bowels of this stadium. And then on the way back, we had security, but they had like this staging room. It looked like an airplane hangar. It was, 100-foot ceiling, massive. You could have played some other sport in there. And we come walking through the door, and Mick Jagger is in there with his security guard, and he's like working out. And I'm like, he knows he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it's us.
Yeah.
But that's his time. And his security is like putting his hand on his pistol. Like, you need to leave the I'm like, you're going to shoot us? There's only 6 of us. 80,000 people are going to watch him run around for 2 hours.
Don't
go back the
us.
way you came. He had his hand on his gun. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
That's amazing.
But by the way, no shots were fired.
Yeah, none
and
at
Mick
all.
got to do his workout in the privacy of his own workout.
We're a hanger.
Yeah,
which is great. Listen, this was so much fun, Chris. I just got to say, I know you guys. I could sit here with you for a couple days or have you guest DJ for a week. And you'll have to come back and do it again.
Of course. We'll pick another theme next time.
Yeah,
we'll
maybe
play
we'll do
R&B and blues or
R&B,
something.
blues, and soul. Yeah, we could do some like a bunch of stuff like that.
Or we could come in at 3 a.m. and just dub everyone out with like Rasta records.
Yeah, we could. We could play a little Lee Scratch Perry.
we have it all.
Yeah, absolutely, which would be great. But thank you so much, Chris,
Thanks for
coming
having
in.
me, Matt. It was great.
It was awesome to have you here, man. Chris Robinson, don't forget a couple things. If you do vote on the Grammys, don't forget Happiness Bastards is eligible and deserves it. I mean, two of my favorite albums this year were your record and the Pearl Jam record, and it was just such an exciting year, as it always is for music, and that's what I love about the SoCal
And
sound.
also, if anyone sees Professor Higgins, tell him that I lost my paper, but that I'm going to come back strong at the end of the semester for the history of spoons. And then maybe next year I'm going to do forks and toothpicks.
Yes.
I don't know.
Patios and lawns, you're not going to do that one too?
That's a little above my pay grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
okay.
see those guys, that have tenure in that kind of thing. I'm like, they're a little snobby for me.
Yeah. I think the spoons thing is good, but it was great to have you.
Maybe I'll have history of the spatula. I don't know.
I love it. It was so great to have you.
And then
Chris.
I'm also minoring in dental torture. Yes.
Yeah, which is what I've been going through for the last couple of days.
Yeah, my paper's on you.
Yeah, it's amazing. If I told people, yes, it's true. I was dealing with the whole, getting my one of my tooth pulled yesterday, and I still made it through the show. You can do that. Today, it's a lot easier.
That's showbiz, man.
It is. So we'll leave. We're going to play What Is and What Should Never Be, your version from the old version of Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes. People should look for the new box set that's coming out in March. And if you haven't gotten Happiness Bastards, it's so great. And if you get a chance and you're traveling anywhere, take a look at the Black Crowes touring schedule, because they're doing some great shows across the country.
Yeah, if you just so happen
to be flying to Cleveland.
Cleveland, I would just like this. If anyone from Los Angeles makes it to Pikeville, Kentucky, I'll give you a free ticket.
Yeah. Pikeville, Kentucky. You heard him, and he will make good on it, right, Mr. Didia? Mark Didia.
Yeah, call Mark Didia at Red Light Management and show him your California driver's license.
That's it.
And I'll let you into the show for free.
That's amazing. All right, listen, thank you so much. Chris, thanks for coming by and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me, man.
Chris Robinson, everybody, right here on the SoCal Sound.
88.5 FM, KCSN, and KCSN HD1 North.